As the NFL offseason has progressed, it's become apparent that the Eagles are going to lose a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball, as they have 7 defensive starters and 10 key defensive players set to hit free agency, and they just simply don't have enough money to keep all of them. But there was still some good news, and it's that the Eagles still have some key defensive players that are under contract for the 2023 NFL season, and we knew that at least those players would be back. Or so we thought, as we just got some pretty bad news regarding one of those players, and this news could put the Eagles defense in even more trouble moving into the 2023 NFL season, and we're going to talk all about that in this video. But before we do that, make sure you go subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of the Eagles content we got coming throughout the rest of this offseason. Free agency's coming up. We're going to have a lot of stuff coming for that, so make sure you subscribe. And now with that being said, let's get into the video. As the start of NFL free agency approaches on March 15th, we continue to get more and more information every single day regarding the Eagles free agent situation, and as this information has come out, it's become more and more apparent that the Eagles defense is going to look very different in 2023 and moving forward than it did in the 2022 NFL season, as they have a lot of players that were on the defense last year that are set to hit the open market when free agency begins, including players like Javon Hargrave, who it seems like the Eagles are going to lose him, as he is going to command around $20 million per year in free agency according to Adam Schefter, and there's teams like the Cleveland Browns, Seattle Seahawks, and Chicago Bears that are all interested in him, and the Eagles just aren't going to be able to pay him the money he's looking for. You got a player like James Bradberry, who came in last year to revitalize his career with the Eagles. He probably had a career season. He made an all-pro team, and now it looks like he's going to be gone as well, as his price tag is going to be too high for the Eagles to pay, and it looks like the Arizona Cardinals are the main contender to land him. You have players like TJ Edwards, Kyzir White, Marcus Epps, Fletcher Cox, who all had great seasons, and it looks like every single one of them might be out the door as well. And Brandon Graham is the only guy out of all the Eagles defensive free agents that I'm pretty confident is going to return to the Eagles in 2023 and moving forward. And after I've just finished recording this video, it has become official. Brandon Graham has signed a 1-year deal to remain with the Philadelphia Eagles in 2023 per Tim McManus of ESPN. Great news for the Philadelphia Eagles. I love Brandon Graham. So excited to have him back. He's obviously been one of the leaders of the Eagles defense for a long time, and he's really the heart and soul of that Eagles defense. Just so excited to have him back. But at least that's some good news for the Eagles defense in 2023. But he's just one guy, and it looks like all these other guys could potentially leave. And then another guy that I personally thought was going to be staying with the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think all Eagles fans thought he would remain with the Philadelphia Eagles, is CJ Gardner-Johnson, as it was clear that the Eagles made him their #1 priority moving forward into free agency this offseason. But over the past few days, we've got news suggesting that it seems like he might be gone as well. As the deadline to franchise tag players came and went, the Eagles didn't use their franchise tag on CJ Gardner-Johnson, and then as the day progressed, more and more news came out saying how difficult it would be for the Eagles to re-sign Gardner-Johnson in free agency. You got news of him changing his TikTok bio from Eagle safety to NFL safety. And then later that night, CJ Gardner-Johnson released a tribute video basically saying thank you to Philadelphia, and it really seemed like a goodbye post from CJ Gardner-Johnson. Made myself very sad, a lot of other Eagles fans very sad. But there's still hope. It's not over quite yet, as obviously free agency hasn't quite started yet. And there's still time for the Eagles and Gardner-Johnson to negotiate a contract extension. And I haven't heard much of there being many potential suitors that are interested in CJ Gardner-Johnson, at least not from an official report. Obviously, there's rumors flying around, but I haven't heard a report saying any specific team is going to be targeting CJ Gardner-Johnson this offseason. You haven't heard many teams linked to him, so maybe that's a good sign. He's still going to stay with the Eagles. And then last night, he was streaming on Twitch, and he was wearing an Eagles t-shirt. So at this point, I don't know what to think. I still would say more likely than not, he's probably gone, but there is still hope that he could come back, which is obviously a good thing. But despite that, it still seems like 2023 is going to be a retooling year for the Eagles on defense. Obviously, like I said, they're probably going to lose a bunch of their key defensive players in free agency, and they're probably going to go out and try to build their defense through the draft, and then the Eagles will get a lot of compensatory picks for having a lot of their free agents leave the team this offseason, and those picks will be for the 2024 NFL draft. So the hope would be that the Eagles draft well and they're able to rebuild their defense to an elite level by the 2024 NFL season. But then that leaves the question, well, what about 2023? How are they going to get through this season defensively? My guess would be they probably try to go out in free agency and plug some of the holes with cheap veteran players, and they also are going to try to continue to develop some of their younger players and have them fill the roles as well, have them step up and hopefully become big parts of this Eagles defense moving forward. And they still also have some talented guys on the defensive end. They have Hassan Reddick, who obviously had a career season last year with the Eagles, Josh Sweat, Avonte Maddox. It seems like Brandon Graham will be back with the team, and of course, Darius Slay. And it seemed like all these guys were 100% going to be back next season. Or so we thought, as we just got some breaking news. According to Diana Russini of ESPN, the Philadelphia Eagles have allowed Darius Slay's agent Drew Rosenhaus to seek a trade per sources. The Eagles are still hopeful to find a solution where Slay remains an Eagle. And honestly, I mean, this just came out this morning. It kind of came out of nowhere, I think, for a lot of people. So why all of a sudden is this news coming out that the Eagles are allowing Darius Slay to seek a trade? Well, it really just has to do with money at the end of the day. The Eagles have only around $6 million in cap space right now, and obviously they are going to have to extend Jalen Hurts this offseason. They're going to have to try to bring back some of their free agents, go out and try to fill the holes they're going to lose from the free agents they're ultimately going to end up losing this offseason. And they still have a way to create cap space, and the way that they can create cap space is by restructuring some contracts, specifically the contracts of Lane Johnson and Darius Slay. And they can create up to around $30 million in cap space by making these two moves. And Darius Slay, his cap hit for the 2023 NFL season is set to be $26 million. But if they restructure his contract, they can create up to $12 million in cap space by turning his base salary into a signing bonus. And the Eagles could also extend Slay and effectively do the same thing and create around the same amount of cap space by doing that. And I think that's obviously the favorable option, as it would not only create the cap space, but it would allow Darius Slay to remain with the Eagles at least for a couple more years after this year, as this is a contract year for Darius Slay. And it's very clear that Darius Slay wants an extension and to remain with the Eagles moving forward into the future. And he was just on a podcast last week where he was asked about this, and he said this.
Of course, I want an extension with the Eagles. I love the Eagles. I love that money. You know what I'm saying? So, of course, I'm gonna be talking about this obviously in this area, but that's what we all do. When we got 1 year left on our deal, we try to get the extension because makes the cap low, yep. And then you can start building around the team because once you cap too high, you can't add more players. So with me, with my cap that high, yeah. I'm sure they probably want to get it down, and the best way to get it down is give me some money.
Come on now, let's go.
I'm with it though, but I love Philly, man. I plan on staying on Philly, but it don't happen. But I know I got 1 year left here, but man, yeah, I'd love to stay in Philly for sure.
So obviously in this clip, Slay made his intentions very clear. He wants to get a contract extension from the Philadelphia Eagles, and he wants it to be for a significant amount of money. And obviously, although the Eagles would love to do this, they'd love to extend Darius Slay. He's been one of their best players on defense ever since he's got to Philadelphia. And he's also become a leader of that Eagles defense and just a big voice in that Eagles locker room. He was obviously a first-time captain last season. He's just a big piece of what the Eagles have been doing and their success over the past couple seasons. He's a 5-time Pro Bowler. He's still one of the best corners in the entire NFL. With the Eagles the past 3 seasons, he's made 2 Pro Bowls, and he's probably one of the heartbeats of that Eagles defense, along with guys like Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, CJ Gardner-Johnson this past season. Darius Slay has been one of those guys, one of those difference makers, and one of those vocal leaders for the Eagles defense. But there are also risks involved if the Eagles want to do this. Darius Slay is now 32 years old, and it's possible that should the Eagles give him a contract extension, he could regress in the years moving forward. The Eagles have to be wary that they can't give him too much money should they go and extend him. And I think that brings us back to today's news where the Eagles have now allowed him to seek a trade. So basically, my guess on what happened is this. Darius Slay, his agent, and the Philadelphia Eagles probably entered into negotiations on a contract extension to keep Darius Slay in Philadelphia moving forward. And these negotiations have probably been going on for a while now, probably since the offseason began. This has kind of been happening, but now we've probably got to a point where Darius Slay and his agent have probably asked for a pretty high price, and it's probably a price that the Eagles don't feel quite comfortable with meeting. And the Eagles know that they can't just let Darius Slay play out this final year on his contract without restructuring it or without extending him, because that cap hit of $26 million is really, really high, and the Eagles aren't going to be able to afford that and also bring in other guys to help fill out the rest of the roster should he play out the rest of his contract as is. And now that they haven't been able to agree on anything, that's why the Eagles have given Slay and his camp permission to seek a trade. Now, obviously, nothing is final. The report originally from Diana Russini said the Eagles want to find a way to keep Darius Slay, and it's still possible the Eagles and Slay are able to agree on a contract extension. Negotiations are probably going to be ongoing for the next couple days now, leading up to free agency, and it's definitely still a possibility that they're able to agree on something and Slay remains with the Eagles for the next few seasons on a new contract extension. But if they aren't able to agree on an extension, then it's more than likely that Slay will be traded. And a John Clark report confirmed this, as he just said, "It's my understanding Darius Slay would like a new deal. Eagles would like to sign him to a new deal and lower his cap number, but they don't agree on money. I'm hearing Eagles are allowing him to see if there is a better deal with another team, but the hope is Slay remains an Eagle. So we're going to see what happens within the next few days leading into free agency. I hope the Eagles and Darius Slay are able to work something out and they find a way to keep Slay in Philadelphia, at least for a couple more seasons. I really like what Slay has brought to this Eagles defense ever since he was traded here in 2020, and I hope they find a way to keep him in Philadelphia while not paying him too much money. But if not, and he ends up getting traded, it puts the Eagles defense in a really tough situation moving forward. They're pretty much going to have an entirely new look defense in 2023. They're going to lose a bunch of these players in free agency in addition to losing Darius Slay should he be traded, and they have a new defensive coordinator as well. So we're going to see what happens with the Eagles defense, but it's safe to say they're not in a good position and they could be in trouble depending on what ends up happening. But what do you guys think about this? That's pretty much all I got for this video. If you did enjoy, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more Eagles content just like this. Drop a like on the video to help push it out to other people. If you want to watch more Eagles content, you can go watch this video right here. And with that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this video, guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.